Over the past year, I've spent quite a bit of money on BookBox subscriptions, so today I'm figuring out what I actually paid for and making all of these books compete for a spot on my May TBR. Welcome back to Espresso Shots and Epic Plots. I'm Genevieve, and every month I pick a theme to read down my physical TBR. This month's theme, BookBox subscriptions. So before we start talking about BookBox subscriptions, let's do a numbers check-in. I started April with 146 books. Throughout the month, I read 3 of those books, and then I unhauled 11 more as part of my April monthly vlog. I was able to only add 2 books as part of a BookBox subscription. So this brings my current total to 134 books. BookBox subscriptions are the reason that I keep adding books to my physical TBR. So I'm currently subscribed to OwlCrate Adult and Aardvark. I would say if you are more of a variety reader, you like to mood read, you like to read different things here and there, then something like OwlCrate is definitely more up your alley. OwlCrate isn't so much about special editions as they are about bringing quality, diverse books each month, often from authors that you may not have heard from. Each month they offer 5 or 6 selections. They typically have a romance, a mystery, a literary, just general fiction, a mystery or horror, thriller or horror, sci-fi, fantasy, like in various combinations. They have really high quality books. If you go look for hardcover editions of books, you're gonna pay way more usually than what Aardvark is charging. And you get to pick what goes in your box. OwlCrate is a little bit more specialized. They have various subscriptions at this point. I am subscribed to the adult fantasy. They also have an adult romance. They have an adult sci-fi. They have an adult horror. And I believe they're starting a mystery thriller series as well. And then they also have young adult fantasy. The difference with the OwlCrate books is that you don't necessarily know what you're getting each month. However, there's a lot of people on Instagram and Reddit that make predictions about what the books are going to be, and their predictions are usually right. So I usually know ahead of time what I'm getting. There are lots of other BookBox subscriptions. The other one that I own books from is FairyLoot. However, I'm not actually subscribed to FairyLoot. FairyLoot books I usually try to buy either on Pango. I've bought some from Half Price Books before. So you can often find FairyLoot books on Pango, people selling them. They either read them and they didn't want it or they didn't like it and they're trying to sell it. So those are the 3 that we're comparing today: Aardvark, FairyLoot, and OwlCrate. Some of the pros, especially with Aardvark, you're getting quality books for a really reasonable price, and they offer a variety of genres and authors and types of books. Downside is you might feel compelled to get more things to like fill your box because they're cheaper. I definitely have way more Aardvark books than I have anything else because you can get up to 3 a month, and that can add up really quickly in terms of like how many books you have on your shelves. OwlCrate, downside, obviously you don't know what you're getting. Even if you know what book you're getting, you don't know what it's going to look like. You could know the book and really want the book, and then the edition could show up and you don't really like it. You could have been totally fine with the original version and saved some money. The flip side being they have some really great artists. They add some nice features. They usually have decorated end pages, edges, naked hardcover. The dust jackets are reversible. So you really are getting like much more of a different, I don't want to say reading experience. You're getting much more of a different look in a book. However, they don't come out when the book comes out. I usually have to wait a little bit. We're gonna do this in 3 rounds. One of the rounds I've essentially already done because it involved a Google spreadsheet and some math and some looking at things and stuff like that. But you're gonna be around for rounds 2 and 3, which are gonna involve some dice. I broke them into their categories of Aardvark, OwlCrate, and FairyLoot. And I ranked them under various criteria, and I'll kind of summarize the criteria on the screen for you. The first criteria was price. If it was what I considered cheap, I gave it 3 points. If it was average, I gave it 2 points, and then if it was expensive, I gave it 1 point. So right off the bat, you can see that all of the Aardvark books got cheap. One Aardvark book is actually $19. That's what it is. It's $19 to $20. And then the additional books are $10. So the way that I averaged it out was I went through all of my past Aardvark bills, added them all up, and then divided by the total number of books that I purchased. And so on average, the books are about $14, which for a hardcover is really good. I would say that's what a hardcover at half price books cost. All of the Aardvark books got 3 points for their price. So next we'll talk about the OwlCrate. These are by far the most expensive. With shipping, I pay just over $45 a month for my OwlCrate books, which is more than you would pay for these books at Barnes & Noble or at an independent bookstore. But the idea being you're getting more with the book. You're getting a different edition. So all of the OwlCrate books got 1 point because they all cost the exact same each month, no matter what book I'm getting. The FairyLoot ones, because I buy them on Pango, they had the widest range. One day I found a huge haul of FairyLoot books. There was 4 of them. So I spent $100 on 4 FairyLoot books, which was only $25 a book. That kind of fell into the average range. But then there was another FairyLoot edition of a book that I was really interested in, and I spent more than it would have cost me on FairyLoot if I had been a FairyLoot subscriber. At some point, you can't find those books on FairyLoot because they sell out of them, and so Pango is kind of, and other used book options are kind of your only option. Those have the widest range, but that's because of how I'm purchasing them. I believe FairyLoot pricing, if you are a subscriber, is very similar to OwlCrate. They got anywhere from 1 to 2 points because of their cost. So then my next criteria was their Goodreads rating. It's pretty straightforward. This ranged from 1 to 5 points. If it was a 3.6 or lower, it got 1 point. If it was a 4.2 or higher on Goodreads, it got 5 points. And then you can kind of see the ranges in between. This is where you start to see some diversity. The Aardvark books are kind of all over the place. You can kind of see their breakdown. We have some 2s, we have some 3s and 4s, and we do have a couple 5s in there. But because you are choosing from a wide variety of books and a wide variety of authors, you also get a wide variety of Goodreads ratings. OwlCrate, I would say, is very consistent. I'm really happy with the way that OwlCrate has been picking books recently. A lot of the books since I have subscribed, many of them are doing very well. I have skipped books that I'm not interested in. I don't own them, so I'm not factoring them in. So a lot of the OwlCrate books are in the 4 to 5 point range. They're in that 4 to, well, not 5 star. Nobody gets 5 stars on Goodreads, but a lot of them are 4 stars and higher. The FairyLoot, again, because I'm like hand picking what I want, there is a little bit of a range in their points. You can see this is straight from Goodreads. I have them all listed there so you can see how those points were awarded. My last category was their edition quality. So this is obviously subjective. This is qualitative data, as we would say in science. So this is based on my own opinion. So I ranked this from 1 to 5 as well. So I gave them from 1 to 5 points. If it was beautiful, if I loved it, if I thought it was really unique, I gave it 5 points. If it was really pretty, but it wasn't quite in the love category, it got 4 points. If it was okay or there was something unique about it, it got 3 points. If it was pretty much exactly like every other edition, it got 2 points. And then I also added, if I would rather have the original one, the like OG book, then it got 1 point because there are a couple of those. So right off the bat, many of the Aardvark books are exactly like the original book. It's just in hardcover would be the only thing. Now that being said, Aardvark books are really good quality. Much like Book of the Month, they do have their logo. So Book of the Month puts their logo on the spine. Aardvark, I love, they hide their logo on the cover. Now when I say hide, like obviously you can see it there, but from a distance or from the spine, you don't know that it's an Aardvark book. The covers feel like buttery smooth. I don't know how else to describe it. And then the naked hardcover also matches the style of the cover of the book. So it also feels like buttery smooth, like it's a really high quality. The spine and the Aardvark logo match. The pages are of good quality, but they're not much different than the original. There are some exceptions. 3 of them are exceptions. I gave A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping a a 3 because they did an ombre naked hardcover. I don't know if you'll be able to tell that on here. So it's not just the straight pink. It actually has like an ombre look to it. That's not just a shadow. That's the actual cover. So I gave this a 3. Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. They had a special edition. So Aardvark does do special editions. Again, a lot of the special editions are on the hardcover. So they added this foiling, this embossing. Again, it's kind of a repeat of the cover, which this is the original cover, but it had a little bit of extra flair to it. So I gave this one a 3. My most recent acquisition, I gave this one a 4. So again, the cover of Japanese Gothic looks pretty similar, but I was able to get a signed edition, and it is a special edition where the hardcover kind of goes above and beyond. It has some of the foiling. It's got a little bit of the ombre. It's almost like they combined a lot of the other special stuff they did on previous ones. We got the ombre, we got the gold foiling, it was signed. And so that one I elevated. I gave that one 4 points. But for the most part, you're not buying these for pretty books, you're buying them because you want variety. OwlCrate and FairyLoot are where we see the most variety. Now, FairyLoot, I'm going to talk about FairyLoot. I'm seeking these out, so I'm not going to buy versions of these that I don't like. So obviously these run a little bit higher. A lot of these editions I'm giving 4s and 5s because I went looking for them. So for example, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I did not like the original cover of the book, and I really liked this edition. OwlCrate has an edition of this that I could have bought, but I didn't like that one either. So I went looking specifically for this on Pango, waited until it was a price that I felt was reasonable. I think I had some Pango bucks. Even though it was on the more expensive side. This was definitely 1 point expensive, but it was an edition that I really wanted, really loved. It has some nice edges. The artwork inside is beautiful. I feel like it really matches the vibe of the book. Of course, I bought this because I thought it was pretty, and so the edition gets a 5 for me. OwlCrate has been hit or miss for me. So OwlCrate is one of my examples of I would rather have the original. One of my first OwlCrate books was Gifted and Talented by Olive E. Blake, and I actually gave that 1 point because I really like the original cover. I wish that OwlCrate would have done a better play on the original cover. Here, let me grab my edition. I'll put a picture of the original here. Here's OwlCrate's edition. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It shows kind of the contentiousness of their relationship. We've got some end paper artwork that shows the siblings. This is a book about siblings fighting for inheritance. The dust jacket, it also shows the family. Sometimes they do a reverse dust jacket that is more like the original cover. This just shows the siblings. The naked hardcover isn't bad. It's got some of that embossed edges. It has all of these like smiley face and molecules throughout it, like chemical molecules, which I have is related to the book. I know what the book is about a little bit. Compared to the original, I like the original more. Another one that I ranked a little higher, but I like the original more is actually the Everlasting. I'll put the original cover of the Everlasting here. This one isn't bad. I think I gave this like a 2.5 or a 3. This one might fit the vibe of the book more. I haven't read this one yet. The vibe of the book that these covers are giving are very dark, creepy, I would say. Like there's not a lot of bright colors. There's not a lot of joy. And maybe that is what this book is like. I do like the naked hardcover of this has a little bit more color. I don't even like the reverse that much. I just think compared to the original, I don't really enjoy it, but maybe once I read the book, I'll understand why this is the way they went. So this is another example of one where I think I actually like the original one. Oh, I forgot to talk about, there was one Aardvark that I said that I would rather have the original, and that was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. That was one of my first Aardvark books. The only reason I say that, the cover looks exactly the same. If you buy the hardcover anywhere else, it has some end pages that are really beautiful, that are just like standard in the standard edition. And I thought for sure the Aardvark books would do that, but they don't. They just have like blank end pages. And so I was kind of bummed about that when it showed up. And I was like, oh man, this didn't even do like what the standard edition is doing. So that one, I actually did give that one a little bit lower because I would rather have the pretty end pages. Like if that's standard on the standard book, I feel like it should be standard on the Aardvark ones, but whatever. OwlCrate does have some really unique ones though. One of my more recent ones, so this is the Poet Empress. It does look very different than the original. I do like the artwork of this one. I think it does fit the the style of the story, but then they went above and beyond. Oh, the naked hardcover is really pretty. It has a nice little, a really good color palette. But with this one, they did something really cool with the edges. So they look like they're just gold, you know, edges, but when you actually like bend them, you can see that there's different shapes in there, different, like, I think they're roses. So I just thought that was like a cool little feature. You can kind of see my point value spread on the screen now. I tandem read a lot. I like to have the audio and the physical book. When I'm in the car driving around, I like to listen to the audio, and then when I get home, I'll pick up the physical book. If my daughter's watching TV and I just want to be in the living room, I'll pop the audio in while I'm reading just so I'm not distracted by the other things that are going on. So my bonus point had to do with the audiobook length. So I decided to just do 1 bonus point if it was available now, like if I could get the audiobook right now. And then I actually judged it on how long the audiobook was. I have some doozies on my May TBR. I've got a huge dungeon crawler Carl. I've got Jasmine Throne. I've got Catabasis or Catabasis. Like, I've got all these really long books. So what I did was, if it was a long book, if it was over 15 hours, it got no bonus points. If it was a medium length book, so 10 to 15 hours, it got 1 bonus point. And then if it was on the shorter side, if it was 10 hours or less, then it got 2 bonus points. I will say mostly it's Aardvark books that are like on the 10 hours or less. There are some fantasy romance books from OwlCrate that were 10 hours or less. Most fantasy books are going to be on the longer side. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, 0 points there. It's long. That's how I kind of arranged everything. I put those in a spreadsheet, tabulated them, ranked them to narrow it down. I picked 4 Aardvark because that's what I have the most of, 3 OwlCrate because that's what I have the next most of, and 2 FairyLoot books that were all in the top tiers of those. So round 1, I already know because I used my spreadsheet to figure that out. After round 1 from Aardvark, I have Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker, Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sango Mendana, and then Kill the Beast by Sarah Swift. So these were my top 4 Aardvark books. These 3 have unique edition qualities. Kill the Beast has a very high rating on Goodreads. My top 3 OwlCrates, we're in a red vibe apparently, The Poet Empress by Shen Tao, Red City by Marie Lu, and then The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. These really come down to, I mean, obviously they're expensive, but they have high Goodreads ratings. I really want to read The Everlasting, even though I don't like this edition. Maybe it'll make sense after I read it. So here's my 3 OwlCrates. My FairyLoot, I've got Sorcery and Small Magics by Mai Gadusi, and then Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I really like these editions. I think they're gorgeous. I didn't pay a whole lot for, well, I didn't pay a whole lot for this one. This one I did pay more for, but I really like the edition. This has very high ratings. This has very mixed ratings. So they kind of like balanced out. After round 1, I've narrowed it down to these 9 books. So you are here to help me get through round 2 and 3. For round 2, we're gonna roll a D10. I'm gonna roll until I narrow it down from 9 to 3. And then when I get to round 3, I'm gonna roll a good old-fashioned D6, and then that's gonna help me pick the one and final book. So I have different prompts associated with each of these. So if I roll a 0, one of the Aardvarks advances. If I roll a 1, the one with the highest rating, Goodreads rating, advances. If I roll a 2, it's whatever has the lowest total overall. If I roll a 3, I do a double elimination. If I roll a 4, the highest, prettiest edition advances. If I roll a 5, it's just a gut check, whatever I want advances. If I roll a 6, the one with the top score is eliminated. If I roll a 7, I eliminate an OwlCrate. If I roll an 8, whichever one I'm kind of avoiding advances. Let me decide that now, actually. I think of all the ones here, Chuck Tingle's the one I'm avoiding. I'm interested in it. I've heard that it's weird, but I'm still willing to try it. So we're gonna call that now. If I roll an 8, that one advances. And then if I roll a 9, the FairyLoot advances. So I guess I don't know how many times I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna roll until I either have 3 left or 3 set aside. So this is as far down as I can get this. I thought this was cute. This is actually like a thing that sits over there like a little display, but it's almost Mother's Day, so I thought it would be good. Let's see what I get. Okay, so I rolled a 0, so I'm going to advance an Aardvark. Of all of the Aardvarks, I'm gonna advance A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping because I've been wanting to read this one. Let's put this pile over here. 7. Okay, so I'm gonna eliminate an OwlCrate. All right, let's see here. I think I'm gonna eliminate Red City. I just read the Greenbone Saga not that long ago, and it has similar vibes, and I like the Greenbone Saga. It's just not what I'm in the mood for right now. We're gonna eliminate that one. Okay, so let's see here. All right, 1. Ooh, highest rating advances. So I have to consult my handy dandy spreadsheet. So this is highest Goodreads rating. The Poet Empress currently has a 4.45 on Goodreads. We're gonna advance the Poet Empress. Okay, so we've got A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping and the Poet Empress. Okay. Oh, okay. And then highest rating advances. I just did that. The next one on the list. Oh, this is exciting. This kind of worked out perfectly. Of what is left, the Sorcery and Small Magics by May TBR. This one had the next highest Goodreads rating. This is kind of cool because I have an Aardvark, an OwlCrate, and a FairyLoot. I did not plan it that way, but it worked out that way. First, we rolled a 0 and advanced an Aardvark. I chose A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sango Mentana. This is about a witch that tried to do some magic, something happened, and she lost all of her magic, so she's trying to live a quiet life as an innkeeper. I know, like, it's a romance. The Poet Empress is all the rage now. I've heard really good things about this. The emperor is dying, her land is consumed by famine, and then poetry magic is lost to all except the powerful. Our main character is desperate, and her family is dying. They're on the brink of starvation, so she's going to do anything to save the one she loves, including offering herself as a concubine to the cruel heir of the dynasty, essentially. She's going to rely on her wit and become dangerous, even if it means learning the art of poetry magic in secret. Sorcery and Small Magics this is a LGBTQ book about 2 wizards, witches, whatever you want to call them, sorcerers. It's called Sorcerers. It's about 2 sorcerers that one is kind of like a bumbling, not idiot. I think he's just like clumsy and klutzy. And the other one like has his crap together and is very like type A and on it, and they're in school together. Something happens and they end up magically tied to each other and they have to go on this journey. This one and A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping are on my R Fantasy for various things. Yeah, this is a good pool to pick from. So now we're gonna move on to round 3. So round 3 involves the 6-sided die, and so now it's just whatever I roll. So if I roll a 1, it's whatever book was the lowest cost. If I roll a 2, it's the one with the highest Goodreads rating, which right now is the Poet Empress. If I roll a 3, it would be the highest overall, so I'd have to consult my spreadsheet and see which one had the highest total value considering all the criteria. 4 is the highest cost, 5 is the lowest Goodreads rating, and then 6 is the highest edition quality. So let's roll and see what we get. So I've got my 6-sided die. 3, highest overall. I gotta look at my spreadsheet. I got very technical with this, you guys. Sort. I love spreadsheets because you can sort them however you want. So the highest overall that I gave was Sorcery and Small Magics by May TBR. So I got a 4.28 on Goodreads, so it got a 5 for that ranking. This only cost me $25 when I got it from Pango, so it got a 2 for the cost. I have the audio available, and it's 11 hours, so it was in the middle for the audio. And then I gave this a 5. I also gave the Poet Empress 5. This is going to be added to my May TBR. Like always, I'll be sure to check in with you. I'll check in before I start reading it. I'll check in while I'm midway, and then I'll bring you along for any other bookish things that I do or any other fun random events that I think you might want to see. Until then, I'm going to get reading. It's Mother's Day, and I am getting a chance to do some reading and relaxing. Still have to do all of the chores of laundry and grocery shopping and going to lacrosse games, but that's okay. I am getting some time to do things for myself. I think I'll start A Sorcery in Small Magics by May pretty soon here. I think that's going to be the next book I pick up. But before I talk about it, I thought I would actually talk a little bit more about what I've experienced with the book boxes so far. I'm not going to go into like the details of how much and how you subscribe, and that's not kind of the point of this video, but I started thinking, I did all of this analysis of the books that I own that I haven't read, but I thought it might be worthwhile to talk about the ones that I have read between all of them. I have already read numerous FairyLoot books, numerous OwlCrate books, and a few of the Aardvark books as well, so that I would try to give you like a more comprehensive look at all of these book box subscriptions. In terms of prettiest edition, obviously Aardvark editions are pretty standard, like they look very similar to the original book. So then we've narrowed it down to OwlCrate and FairyLoot. I actually really like FairyLoot's artwork a lot better than OwlCrate. That being said, I do like the OwlCrate books that I have gotten, but I feel like their character artwork, the way they draw people in the books, is always a little more childlike than what I was expecting. So for example, the Sorcery of Small Magics. This is a FairyLoot edition of it. The cover at first doesn't really look that much different than the original. I'll put the original cover here. You'll notice some similarities. There's some gold foiling on this that is not on the original cover. It's when you get underneath. So obviously a lot of these book box subscriptions have stenciled edges. Hopefully it focused on that, that match the theme of the book. That's true in both of them. They will also have things on the naked hardcovers. I like these simplistic ones. The Everlasting is another one that has a really good simplistic naked hardcover. I like some of the fancier ones too, but this almost looks like an old classic. If you just saw this on the spine, you might think it's like an old classic sitting on your shelves. But what I mean by the character art, here is the reversible dust jacket for this one. Actually, I don't even know if this one's considered. Yeah, it looks like it's supposed to be reversible. Here we have the characters of the story actually drawn, and I like the character art here. They're also on the inside, on the end pages, and I really enjoy this style. The OwlCrate characters always kind of look a little childlike to me, even though they are adult editions of the book. I think FairyLoot is a little bit prettier. Their waitlist was a lot longer, so I didn't get on their waitlist, but I'm actually okay with that because recently the book picks that FairyLoot has had have not been books that I'm interested in. I've been much more interested in the OwlCrate books, so I'm kind of glad I got onto OwlCrate when I did. I've really been interested in a lot of the books that they've had since I joined their subscription, and I keep an eye on the FairyLoot ones, and there haven't been as many that I've been interested in. Yes, they're pretty, but I don't usually want to read those particular books. Now, in terms of the actual reading experience, I looked at the Goodreads ratings, I looked at the edition, I looked at the cost, and I did that same thing for the books that I've actually read, and it's another mixed bag. So here's some graphics of what I've read and I've enjoyed. So it looks like I've read 3 Aardvark books, 3 FairyLoot books, and 2 OwlCrate books that I own. OwlCrate, I was surprised. I thought I had read more than 2 of those, but I have not, so shame on me. But again, the ones at the top, the ones that have the highest rating, it's 1 Aardvark, 1 FairyLoot, 1 OwlCrate. The ones that have the highest quality edition, and this is my own personal thing, but I've got a FairyLoot, I've got an OwlCrate. Aardvark never really, their edition is never gonna get as high as some of these other ones because that's just not the purpose of Aardvark. And then my own personal rating. So this is where things kind of get a little bit interesting. The Incandescent, for example, that has a 3.98 on Goodreads, but I gave that 5 stars. That was a very me book. I can see why other people wouldn't enjoy it as much. A lot of my other ratings are pretty similar to what others have said. I would say The God and the Gumiho is another one of these exceptions. This is a beautiful FairyLoot edition. I really do. I love this edition. So a lot of the FairyLoot editions are based off of of the UK covers of books. I had this book in paperback, and if you saw the US paperback of this, it looks nothing like this. I think the naked hardcover is gorgeous. If you've read the book, you know why there's this like coffee theme. The character artwork on the end pages is gorgeous. I think it matches the theme of the book. The US version of the book would make you think you're reading a book in ancient Korea, but this I think better represents the fact that you're reading a book that takes place in modern Korea. So this particular book has a 4.06 on Goodreads. I personally gave it a 3.25. And then I would say the Aardvark ones are also kind of all over the place. The Tainted Cup, it was 5 stars for me, but All of Us Are Murderers, that was one that I finished recently, wasn't a bad book. It was just your standard Agatha Christie style mystery. And for me, like, it was good, but it was nothing memorable. So like I gave it 3.75. Because Aardvark books run the gamut in genre, they're also going to run the gamut in ratings. You get to pick the Aardvark books you want, and so you're going to pick things that you're interested in and that you want to read. With OwlCrate, if you do what I do, you know what you're getting into, and I skip things I'm not interested in. You have to make that decision pretty early on, and they announce the books right around the time the book is being published, so you don't necessarily have the best reviews and feedback. I mean, this is true for all of them. Whereas when I buy things on Pango, those books have already been out for a while. I can figure out if it's worth my while. I think in terms of like overall, the best option, what I should be doing would be to buy the books on Pango in all reality. They're not always the cheapest. Sometimes if it's a really pretty edition that everybody wants, you're gonna have a hard time finding it. It's gonna be ridiculously expensive. And so that is kind of like a risk that you're taking. OwlCrate books are the most expensive. And I've only read 2 of all of the OwlCrate books that I own, which I was surprised by. I thought I had read more than that. I'm really interested in reading all the other ones, and they are more expensive. And so I'm not reading them as fast as I should, but I still want to read all of these. I would say Aardvark is what's getting me. I don't always get a book from Aardvark. I sometimes just get one book from Aardvark. I usually get more than one. So I am accumulating Aardvark books much faster than I'm accumulating FairyLoot and OwlCrate books. If you look at the percentage, I've read more FairyLoot books that I own. I've read more percentage-wise. And then OwlCrate, I would have to say, I'll do the numbers and I'll put some graphs on the screen. But I am accumulating so many Aardvark books, and I'm not reading them as fast as I'm accumulating them. If I get 2 Aardvark books a month, which I don't always, and then 1 OwlCrate book a month, that's 3 books every month. And I usually only read like 6, sometimes 7 books a month. Every month, I'm intaking half of what I'm usually reading, not to mention everything else that's on my TBR. If I was a smarter person, what I should be doing probably is the books from Aardvark, I should probably get from the library, but then I'd have to wait for them. And a lot of times I don't even know what they are ahead of time. And then I should stop getting OwlCrate books and start looking for them on Pango, just like I'm doing with the FairyLoot books. I jumped on that hype train of like, I want pretty editions of books and I want to be a part of this, and I signed up for OwlCrate, but I kind of feel like I'm getting to the point where I should stop. I can find them elsewhere, and I've gotten out of the like, oh, I need this like beautiful edition of it, and then maybe I should just be looking at them on Pango. I don't know if that helps anybody make any decisions. I had a friend tell me that there is some sort of online calculator where you can put in your age and see how many books left you could read in your lifetime. And that horrifies me because I don't want to know that number, because I'm sure that it is less than I own, which is like my nightmare. Let's talk about a sorcery and small magics. I always say sorcery and small magics. I had heard about this on BookTube at least over a year. I would say over a year ago. And to me, it had Freya Marsk vibes. So I read the Freya Marsk series that was, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of them. They were an interconnected series, but each book was a different character. Something was Unbound, and I cannot remember the name of them right now. I will put them here. They were very good. I really enjoyed them. This had the same vibes as that to me. There is no reason I haven't picked this up. Like, I cannot tell you why this hasn't been prioritized. I'm really interested in it. I was also, as I mentioned, I was reading other FairyLoot books that I got in that. So when when I bought this, I bought Bonesmith, which I read, but it was a duology. So then I turned around and bought the second one and read that. I read A Teller of Small Fortunes, which I bought in this same box, and then I read The God and the Gamiho. So it's really more, I read the other books in that same box that I purchased, and this one just, for whatever reason, never made it to the top of the list. But I really am excited about it. The reason it kind of gave me Freya Marsk vibes, this is about two magicians. I'm assuming it's a world where magic is known. So this gentleman, he is a sorcerer that does what he considers small magics. So he can do some really pretty small magics like changing someone's hair color, but when he tries to do bigger, more elaborate magic, it kind of blows up in his face. And so he's said, you know, I'm not going to do any of the powerful stuff, which makes him not really favored in particularly, it seems like, his father's eyes, but other sorcerers too. And then we have this gentleman who is his arch nemesis because he's basically the polar opposite of him. He is a very well-renowned sorcerer. He's incredibly talented, and somehow they end up performing a spell that ties them together. They are magically attached to each other. And I believe it was through illegal magic. That's kind of the impression that I get from the plot summary. So they have to go on this journey to find somebody that will help them undo this magic. And then it also sounds like there's a little bit of a love interest that happens. I did read, when I was looking into this book, it is listed as a book number 1, a trilogy. I think it was already listed as a trilogy. That was another reason I kind of put it off, was because I didn't want to just start another series, especially there is no book 2 yet. But I did some Googling, and it seems like even though it is book 1 in a trilogy, that it's not like a big cliffhanger. You're not gonna read this one, finish this one, and go, oh my God, I need the next one, because I absolutely hate that. I always like to read the next one soon. I haven't annotated in a while. I was reading a lot of library books, so I think I'm gonna annotate this. I think this is what I'm gonna put next on my list once I finish up the little novella that I'm reading now, and I'll make sure that I check in with you when maybe I'll do like a 30 and a 60%. We'll kind of see how I'm feeling. We'll see how the plot is going, and I'll let you know how it is. All right, until then. You saw me run a bunch of bookish errands last weekend, so I ended up with a little haul. Today, I got another book in the mail that I figured I would share along with the rest of the ones that I got last weekend. Usually when I have a whole bunch of books that I'm getting ready to get rid of, I take them to Half Price Books. I've been to quite a few of them in the central Ohio area because you never know what you're gonna get. The one by me, I do pretty well at getting some things. I unhauled a big bag of books. I think I had like 20 some on it. That being said, when I go to Half Price Books, I very rarely leave with cash. So even though I took a bunch of books in, I also came home with a bunch of books. I broke my rule twice, but I feel like it's okay. A Perilous Undertaking by Deanne Rayborn. And this is the second in the Veronica Speedwell mysteries. I recently purchased the first one. I think I also got that at a Half Price Books, maybe. When I see something, especially a sequel at Half Price Books, it's not gonna be there for very often. This one looked brand new and it was cheaper than I could find it elsewhere. I always check the prices. And so I had to get this even though I have not read the first one yet. I'm gonna finally bite the bullet and give Red Rising a try. I haven't been avoiding it for any particular reason. I know that the recent one, I think the 5th one, just came out. I've had many people tell me to read this book. It's all over the internet right now. It's, making its circuit, and it was there again. This one looks really unread, in really good condition, and they had it and it was reasonably priced. This one I was really excited. The Lies of Loch Lamore. I look for this book all the time. I rarely see it at Half Price Books unless it's maybe one of the special editions, and they had this one there. This one looks unread and it was a reasonable price. This one is the first one in a series though, so this I did not break my rule for. Same with Red Rising. I only bought the first one. I found a really nice looking edition of Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This is a mystery. I will probably read this and get rid of it. This is a book that I want my mom to read along with me. It's a book that I've heard a couple people read and say is really interesting. It has a podcast vibe to it. I think it's a little bit of mixed media. Yeah, as I'm flipping through it, I can see the different types of narration in here. I've heard the audio is really good. This is one I just keep looking at at, and they had it, and so I figured why not. The Poppy War is another one that I rarely see at half price books. This one was in good condition, doesn't look like it's been read. Books like The Poppy War and Red Rising, I have been tempted to buy special editions of, not necessarily like broken binding special editions, or not like the really expensive special editions, but you know, just some of like the special editions that they make for the general public. I'm trying to be good, even though I've read R.F. Kuang and I've liked things that I've read. I haven't really read that much yet, but you know, I have other R.F. Kuang books on my list. I know that this is very different from Babel, which is the one that I've read, and so instead of buying the special edition, I'm gonna give it a try. If I like it, I might go looking for special editions, but for now, I got this really good quality paperback. And then here's the other time that I broke my rule. The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This one is not in the best condition. I don't think that it's been read, but it has some shelf love, if you will. There's like a little corner that's bent, like the back corners are kind of bent a little bit, and then there's a little bit of damage down here. But this is the second in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. Now, one of the reasons I bought this is because the first one is on my TBR for May. If you watched my April wrap-up and May TBR tumble, then you'll see that The Jasmine Throne is a book that I'm reading this month. I've heard a lot of great things about the series. Most people love the whole series. It's a trilogy. When you see a sequel at half price books, which I don't normally, I haven't seen this at half price books before, then, you know, I felt the impulse to buy it, and I felt like it was fate since the first one was, you know, on my TBR for this month. And then the book mail I got today was my OwlCrate. This particular book I was thinking about skipping because I didn't know these authors. I didn't know this book. Apparently they are very well renowned authors. It is a husband and wife team. They write other fantasy series. If I remember right, she's Russian and he's not. And they write, I think, romantasy, heavy on the romance types of books. Not really my genre, but a lot of people like love them. And so again, I was still kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want this one. But then people started getting arcs of it and it started getting a lot of buzz. And then I knew that it was going to be this month's pick. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give it a try. I'm subscribed to this. This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me by Iona Andrews. I will put the original cover here. The original cover has, I thought it was a swan on it, but based on the pictures in here, I think it might be a phoenix. I'll give you, let's see if I can get it to focus. The person that's on the front is also represented on the edges. Here's the reversible dust jacket. Actually, I don't know if it's reversible. Yeah, it's not. This isn't one I would consider reversible, but the inner part of the dust jacket. Here's the naked hardcover, has our two main characters. This is definitely, I'm sure, going to have some sort of love romantic element to it. And then here we have the end pages. This is why I think it's a phoenix. This picture gives more phoenix vibes than the other one did. I've been talking throughout this video about how I don't like OwlCrate's character art as much as I like FairyLoot's. This one's not bad, actually. The ones on the naked hardcover aren't so bad. These ones get a little cartoony to me. This is about a girl who's really familiar with this fantasy series, and she ends up in the books. She has to use her knowledge of the books in order to save the kingdom, and I'm assuming like get out of the predicament. So she ends up inside of her favorite book and has to use her knowledge to get out. So I'm actually pretty excited to read about it. I love a good like book within a book kind of plot. Ooh, I should get my Aardvark books. Hold on. Where did I put those? I can't believe I forgot my Aardvark books. From Aardvark, I picked 2 books from Aardvark. I snagged a copy of The Caretaker. This is by the Marcus Kluwer. This is the same author as We Used to Live Here, which I haven't read, but I've heard a lot about. This was one they had teased it coming before, so people kind of knew that this was coming. And I've heard his horror-y types of books are like really out there, and like a lot of people read them and go, whoa, I did not see that coming. So I picked up this one. I believe this one is a debut, The Girl with 1,000 Faces by Suni Dean. I've heard really good things about this one. This is about a girl who talks to ghosts. She's a ghost talker, and she's in an East Asian inspired city. It apparently was a real city. It's in Hong Kong. It's no longer a real city. She's washed up on the shores of this city, rebuilds her whole life, gets by using her ability to talk to ghosts. She doesn't know anything about her past, and she starts, now that she's older and she's made a life for herself, there are some clues, there are some things about her past that start to come forth. This has been getting some nice hype on YouTube right now. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I probably dropped off like 11 books and picked up 9. I'm still going down. I'm reading a lot of chunkers this month. Most of the books that I'm reading are books that I own. I don't think I have any. Actually, I did read some library novellas after reading Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm not going to the library as much. Like, I'm not reading as many library books this month. So everything that I'm reading is coming straight from my physical TBR. Hopefully my numbers will continue to go down. I will check back in with you when I am into sorcery and small magics. I intended on checking in with you before this. I'm about 50% of the way through sorcery and small magics. I wanted to do like a 30% check-in, and I mean, time just got away from me is the short answer. Yesterday at the end of the day, I wasn't quite to the 30% mark, but then I was able to listen to a lot of it in the car today, and so I got to the 50% mark. So sorry you didn't get a check-in earlier. We have these two sorcerers or magicians. I think the one is named Sebastian Grimm, but he just goes by Grimm, so I'm just going to call him Grimm. And Leo, so it's Leo and Grimm, and they are currently in their 5th year at this magic school called the Font. This is a world where everybody knows there's magic. It is a magical world. It is not a real area. They describe the area as being mostly like magical wilderness, essentially, and people have been able to tame certain regions, but you avoid the wilderness. And it sounds like there's all kinds of, they call them monsters, like magical creatures, a lot of magical plants, and a lot of them are dangerous. So this is a world where people know there are magic. And there are 2 types of sorcerers. There's casters and scribes, or I think they say scrivers is how they pronounce it. Grimm is a caster. Leo is a scriber. So basically one of them writes and has to understand the language and the wording, and then the other one either says the words or basically like has the spell in their hand and the spell burns up while they are casting it. Grimm casts it without speaking, like he can do it in his head, which is apparently not something a lot of sorcerers can do, but it's, you know, it's possible. And you learn a little bit about this group that is trying to protect the borders, keep back monsters. It doesn't sound like it's a world where there's people that are battling or anything like that. It's mostly like small towns, like small farmers. In fact, Grimm comes from a farming country and Leo comes from upper class gentry. His father is like higher up in the magic tiers. They are definitely enemies. They are nemesis, if you will. There hasn't been a reason so much as the fact that they are just polar opposites. Grimm is very like button up, plays by the rules, stellar student. He seems to have some preconceived notions about Leo and the fact that he's like gentry and rich and he must just be here because they paid for him to be here, or he's here because of money. Whereas Leo is, it's not that he's not good at what he does. He's good at what he does, but he only does small magics. He only does little like cantrips is what he says. He doesn't do big grandiose spells. There's a lot of hints that he doesn't do it because something happened. And I'm sure we'll figure out what that thing is that happened that kind of turned him away from that. Leo has a pretty contentious relationship with his father. He does have an older brother that he gets along with. His older brother is kind of like following in his father's path where he's in, I'm going to call them the military. They're not. They're people that are protecting the edges of this world against like all the monsters and things like that. Leo wants nothing to do with any of that. He is just going to school basically so he can get his inheritance. His mother died when he was 11. Part of his inheritance is his mother's estate, and that's really what he wants. It's not so much that he like wants the money, he wants that connection with his mom. So the two of them have this contentious relationship, and there doesn't seem to be like an inciting incident as to why. I know sometimes in enemies to friends or enemies to lovers types of books, we find out that it was like a misconception or that there was this one incident that set it all off. If there was that, we don't know about it. I would say it's a cozy book. It's not so cozy that you're not interested. Pretty early on, they have to work together. They're forced to work together, and Grimm casts the spell. Basically, Leo hands him a folder. Grimm pulls out this one spell from the folder, like a folder full of spells. Grimm casts it. He casts it without saying anything, and nothing happens, and he's like, what the heck, why didn't anything happen? Well, they come to find out that the spell that he cast was not one that Leo wrote and accidentally got mixed in with his pile. It's basically illegal magic, and it has bound them together. Grimm can basically command Leo to do things things, Leo gets physically ill when he's not near him. So, and that takes place with like pretty early on in the book. They like start to figure all of that out, which when they're at school isn't a problem. Well, then we get to like the harvest break. So harvest is this essentially this celebration that they have in this world. And now they are physically separated from each other. And that's when they start to figure out like the bigger issues. The point where I am at now, the two of them are out in the wilderness trying to find this mysterious sorcerer that's going to help them. If it is an enemies to lovers, we have zero vibes of that right now. I mean, we're starting to get Leo's seeing Grimm in a different light. There hasn't been any interactions with them that imply they're softening up to each other. They really just keep pushing each other's buttons. I personally, in an enemies to lovers type of book, I like when we get dual POVs, and this doesn't have that. This is purely in Leo's point of view the entire time. I prefer when we get dual POVs because then you start to understand like how both sides are seeing each other. When things are just one-sided, it just seems like they're both jerks to each other. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, and even when one is starting to soften up to the other one, we don't know what's happening in the other one's brain. So that's just me personally. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be bad or anything like that. I think it's a lot easier to feel the connection between two people when we can hear like both of their points of view. Like, not a lot has happened where they are getting along. They are still jabbing at each other, pushing each other's buttons and saying things like, and we're 50% of the way through the book. So I'm curious to see when that happens. There's a couple of people in here that I'm very suspicious of. I have no idea if I'm right or anything like that, but there is a character earlier on called Cassius that I have no idea why, but he's just striking me as somebody that set all of this up to happen. I could be completely wrong. This is my current prediction. We'll see if I'm right. I won't tell you if I'm right. So it's cozy, but it's not so cozy that I'm not interested. I want to know why Leo is the way that he is. We're finding out a little bit about why Grimm is the way he is, why he's so like buttoned up and serious. I do kind of suspect that Grimm doesn't like Leo for no other reason other than he's made a bunch of assumptions about Leo and has never really tried to get to know him. Don't be a jerk. I would hope that there would have been some sort of incident that kind of set it all off, or that he overheard something, but there has been nothing like that. And so you don't really know why they don't like each other. I'm enjoying it for sure. Like, it's a really easy read. It's very descriptive. I can like imagine this world. It's no big book with all this world building. You know, we know how the magic works. We're hearing about these different creatures. We know that it's in this other land, but there's not a lot of depth and information into why all of that is. I kind of also suspect there's some nefarious things that are happening with the like higher tier magic world. We have learned of some previous sorcerers that broke into the library where they keep all of the spells and stole some of them. I suspect it's one of those like, the powers that be are hiding spells that everybody should have access to, but I could be wrong. It could just be that there's thieves. I want to know why Leo is the way he is. It seems like something happened. He's talked about in the past there's been spells that he cast and they just kind of like backfired, like they went too far essentially. I feel like it's not going to be anything that is over the top wows me. You know, I am enjoying it. I think that it's going to be one of those books that I'll forget until I see it on my shelves again, or I'll forget until like the next one comes out and I'm like, oh yeah, then I'll remember things. It's not very deep in the world building. It's not very deep in the explanation of the magic, which is totally fine. I like the characters. I hope we get to learn some more things about them. I do wish there was a little bit more backstory or meaning behind their contentiousness. I don't know if that's a word. It sounds like a word now. There hasn't been any like romance or anything yet. And I don't know, I feel like by now I would start to get the hints of that, but maybe not. We'll see. Like I said, I'm just like over the 50% mark now. I'm motivated to continue. In terms of like a special edition, like obviously I didn't pay that much money for it. So when I think of like a special edition of a book, like if I could get a special edition of Blood Over Brighthaven or Babel, those were like 5-star, very powerful books to me that I still think about. Those are books that I like, ooh, a special edition of that is really good. To me, this is like having a special edition of The Spell Shop. It's cute. I'm definitely glad I didn't spend like $45 or $50 to get this special edition. To me, special editions, it's a book that like you could see rereading, or sometimes people have multiple copies. They have the original edition and the special edition. It's what I thought it was going to be. Hopefully I'm not making it sound like it's bad. I'm enjoying it. It's a good time. It's a nice little fun, fluffy read that could use some more in other areas. It is part of a trilogy, and maybe those other books will get at some of these other aspects of like world building and magic and things like that. For now, I'm gonna keep reading. I think since I made it to the halfway point, I'll just kind of get to the end and then fill you in. I finished reading Sorcery and Small Magics by May TBR, and it was a book. Okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying a lot of what I'm gonna say might sound like I did not enjoy the book. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I felt comfortable with 3.5 stars. I think with a 3.5 star book, you get really critical with why it didn't get like a 4 or a 5, but also like it was not terrible enough for like a 1 or a 2 or something like that. I'm just gonna start by saying that there are people out there that this book is for and who will enjoy it and love it. I didn't hate reading it. It was easy to read. I think I read it in about 5 days, and that was like while I was working. The school year's winding down, so we've got a lot of busy school things going on. It's readability. It's, very easy to read. The plot keeps moving forward. Whoa! You're gonna knock me over, cat. The plot is structured in a way that keeps moving forward, so you want to keep reading more. I took notes because I wanted to make sure that I mentioned everything here. So when I say it was a book, it was a book. I don't know how else to say that. A lot of times when, since I've read so many books, I'm really good at predicting plot points or twists. I think many people who read a lot are like that. With this particular book, I kept trying to make predictions. And I know that I wrote down, I annotated, I made predictions, on little Post-it notes, and not a single thing that I predicted came true, because in this book, what you read is what you get. And I hope that that makes sense. There are no plot twists. I kept reading because I kept wanting to know if my predictions were correct. My predictions were not correct, but it's not because there was another option. There just wasn't the depth of plot that I wanted from this book. There also wasn't the depth of world building, the depth of character. None of that was there. At first I was going to classify this as cozy. The author actually went on Goodreads and said she classified it as whimsical. I don't necessarily understand the difference between cozy and whimsical. It falls into that vein. She also said it is a very slow burn romance. There is no romance in this book. This is part of a trilogy, apparently, it's called the Wilder Song Trilogy or Wilder Song Trilogy, and the other two have not even been announced. This one was written in 2024. It's 2026. There is not even a blip of it on Goodreads. So it's been 2 years and there is no announcement of further books. You can read this and it ends in a way where it's not a cliffhanger. If you enjoy the book, I can see wanting to read more and wanting to know more about the characters, but part of me is worried that the lack of depth and lack of character is just going to keep prevailing throughout. There is one thing that I think is supposed to be a twist. It's supposed to be a shocking reveal, but it was so obvious. It was well, duh. I didn't even claim it as a potential thing because it's coming. And that was what I think was supposed to be the big reveal, but I was expecting a lot of other ones. I'm going to refer to my notes. I believe in my last check-in, I mentioned that I wished we had heard from both characters' points of view. Let me see if I can put it here. There we go. And I still think that's true. I hold fast by that, especially if this is supposed to be a romance. By the end of this book, if these two love each other or are starting to have feelings for each other, there is zero basis for it. Leo is under this spell that ties him to Grimm throughout the majority of the book. And so any feelings that he has for him are controlled by this curse basically throughout the entire book. So there's not a whole lot of basis for his feelings. And then Grimm, we don't know his feelings. We never get his point of view. We learn a little bit about why he is the way that he is. It's not super detailed or involved, I would say. My personal opinions of Grimm, because we never get his insight, he's kind of a jerk. And if he does have feelings for Leo, we don't get any hint of that, any inkling of that. Basically, basically these two are in forced proximity with each other throughout the majority of the book because of this curse. Normally that would be like a plot point for them getting to know each other and learning why they are the way they are, and there was never any reason, in my opinion, that their feelings would change. And they kind of continue to like bicker and be jerks with each other throughout a good chunk of the book. They barely get to the point where they're having like civil conversations with each other. Again, the author does say it is a very slow burn romance. I think we're talking like 3-book slow burn romance. I mentioned that they were going out into the wilderness. This is a world, it's a made-up world where there is magic everywhere and there are magical creatures. There is zero explanation for the magical creatures. It just kind of feels like we're plopped down in this world with these magical creatures and we're just supposed to roll with it without any sort of backstory. I talked a little bit about the magical military or government that helps protect the borders. I thought there would be a plot line involving that. Our two main characters venture into the woods where it's dangerous with these magical creatures. They come along some foragers. They run into some foragers that are kind of like helping them through this. I thought there was going to be a plot point with those characters. There was not. It's just like every character in this book, they have an interaction with them, and that's where it leads. Like I kept trying to read more into some. I'm like, oh, maybe this is going to be the interesting thing. And then no, they just left. Oh, maybe this was going to be the interesting thing. And then no, that character just left their lives and that was kind of the end of it. What I realized as I was like sitting down to grade the book or whatever you want to call it, there was no protagonist in this book. There is a character that kind of becomes a protagonist near the end that like puts our main characters into a difficult situation, but I could not figure out the rhyme or reason for why this character was like that. It didn't make sense. Okay, thank you. I didn't understand his motivations. We didn't get enough backstory, and I don't think we're going to. Again, I think this was a character that they interacted with, and now it's gone. This is like the weirdest. Maybe that's what whimsical is. Maybe that's the part I don't understand, but I feel like I've read other whimsical books that didn't feel like this. Every time I would start to get invested in a character or in something like that, it never went anywhere. And I think I kept reading to see if it was going to go somewhere. And I feel bad, like the writing is really good. The plot is structured well. I should say the way the story is structured well. You know, it's moving forward. There weren't any slow points or anything like that, but it was just missing some depth of character, depth of world building, depth of plot that I wanted in a read. And it's a gorgeous book. It's really pretty. I don't think I'm going to keep it though. I will pass it on to somebody else that will hopefully enjoy it more than me. I'm glad that I read it. It's been on my shelves for a while. And this whole exercise really did get me thinking about, book box subscriptions. If I had paid FairyLoot prices for this book and The God and the Gumiho, I probably would have been disappointed. In terms of FairyLoot books, I am glad I'm not subscribed. Part of the appeal of book box subscriptions is once you're subscribed, you get access to their other things. Like you could buy special editions of books. You're the first that gets dibs on them. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, I ended up getting it was about $50, which is more than I would have paid if I had been subscribed to FairyLoot. But if I had been subscribed to FairyLoot, I would have been getting a whole bunch of other books that I probably didn't enjoy as much just to get this one book that I wanted. OwlCrate, I feel like I've had a lot of success with in terms of enjoying the books that I've read. I really enjoyed The Incandescent. I think that edition's really pretty. I read Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. There's some others that I have purchased that I'm gonna prioritize. I've heard really great things about The Poet Empress. I've heard really great things about Red City, and these are all books that I got through OwlCrate. That being said, are they worth $45 with shipping? I'm not sure. However, I haven't totally given up on my OwlCrate subscription yet. I've been wanting to read the books that are coming out. I'm gonna skip a couple in the future because I'm not as interested in them. So I think I'm gonna hold tight on that one. And then I've also been really thinking about my Aardvark subscription. I think Aardvark is probably the better way to go if you are more of like a diverse reader. They are very reasonably priced. That being said, if you're bringing in 2 to 3 books every month, you better be reading them. My Aardvark books are much more hit and miss. I could see some people being tempted to buy an Aardvark book that they wouldn't normally buy because Aardvark has it. And it's like, oh, it's just $10, but you might not read it to begin with. So why would you even buy it? A lot of the Aardvark books I could see myself getting from the library and then reading, but then you just have to, wait to get them from the library. So you really do have to be careful with book box subscriptions. You have to be an avid reader. I already have a bunch of other books in addition to the ones that I'm bringing in. So that's how they get you. You got to watch that. So I don't know if I've impacted anyone's opinions on their book box subscriptions, or if I convinced you to read this or convinced you not to read it. It was a book. That's it for this month's Read Down My TBR. If you have any thoughts on this book, or if you have any thoughts on book box subscriptions that you're subscribed to or that you want to be subscribed to, then leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer any questions you might have about book box subscriptions if I know the answers. If you're enjoying this series, make sure you give a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. June is my birthday month. I'm going to only read books that I really want to read, and I think I'm leaning towards trying to read a whole bunch of them in one vlog instead of just one book at a time. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one in the series, and until then, happy reading!